How you doing?
Hi.
Nice night.
Mm-hmm. Pizza dude's got 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Time's up. $3 off.
All right. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to Comic Book Radio. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti, and this is episode 86. Tonight, my guest is the death metal hero himself, Luke AGLIETTA. And before we get started, before we bring him on, I want to say hello to those of you in the chat. We got Flying Feline here at 1:58 p.m. Eastern Time. Look at that. Getting in line for Luke. We got Bear here. What's up, Bear? Hope you're doing well. Cicero the Wise in the chat. How's it going? Morb357. How are you, my friend? We also have, of course, Death Metal Hero right there in the chat. Also on the stream tonight. And Morb, thank you for promoting the show, spreading the word, all that good stuff. Everybody else in the chat, too, thank you guys if you're spreading the word as well. Appreciate it. We also have Unhinged here. What's up, buddy? Hope you're doing well. We got Spaceman coming down from above. Woodrow is here as well. Hey, hey, hey. Right back at you. Grape Nuka-Cola is here. And we have, Grape Nuka-Cola. Like I said yesterday, you've got a lot of stuff coming to you, my friend. Alternate stuff. I'm excited to see what you think. Thank you for being here. Eric the Guapo says we're waiting. Or screams it. I'm not going to scream it. Sorry for keeping you waiting. Sorry. It'll be worth it, though. It'll be worth it. Morb, $5 says Pete is bagging and boarding comics. Pay up, my man. Pay up. Head on over directly to alternatecomics.com and pick out $5 worth of items. I was not bagging and boarding. I was talking to Luke. We were on time until we started talking. And then we had to stop because it's rude. Rude to you guys. We'll continue the talk on air. But Morb, I was not bagging and boarding. And it wasn't Luke's fault. It was both of our faults, Eric. Both. Well, look at Luke. Look at Luke being classy. He'll never tell. American Comics Company, I hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. Creators Outlet, what's up? How's it going? How's your night? We got Shrek PMC says, new here. Welcome aboard. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here tonight. Hope you're going to enjoy the conversation. We also have, let's see here. Oh, Unhinged, yes. Greatest TMNT movie ever. 100%. Possibly one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. I'll stand by that. Sheldon Martin says, hey, I got a Brazilian plastic surgeon. Oh, good for you. Good for you. Did they cover up the formaldehyde face? Love you, Sheldon. Let's see here. Good stuff. What's up? Good stuff. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here tonight. All right. Without further ado, let's bring him on. It's the man of the hour. This is going to be a great conversation. I've been looking forward to this one since I booked him for the show. It is the one and only, the death metal hero himself, Luke AGLIETTA. What's up, Luke?
Hello and greetings, Comic Book Radio.
What's up, Pete? It's good to see you, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Wow. You broke out the Frank Welker, Dr. Claw, Dark Side voice.
Next time, Gadget. Next time.
That's amazing, man. Great.
Thank
That's
you.
Great.
Yeah, I've been working on that voice for a while. I mean, it's part of the voice I use when I do my sing-along of Doom. I butcher radio favorites and, death metal them up. I gotta...
sometimes you just gotta growl it out.
I've done some voiceovers for... I did one for Luke Stone. I did a narration where I went from a very stern, military voice
seeping into a demon who was conniving.
So, yeah. That's
fantastic, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Spot on. That's great. I had no idea. Man of many talents.
I try. I try. I have a lot of different interests. I love a lot of different things. I enjoy things. So I work on different things. Just have fun. Lean into the
important.
fun.
It's important. Yeah.
It really is, man. There's too much serious in the world now. Everybody needs to find something that they're passionate about and have fun with it. Like comic books.
Absolutely. Yeah. Too many people are tortured by the things they love that should bring them so much joy. What do you think that is?
I think it's to do with our now internet culture. I realize it's really popular to blame everything on the internet, but it has fundamentally changed the way people think. It's kind of rewired people's brains. We need that constant dopamine hit. So instead of doing something because you're passionate about it, you're doing something to try to get that attention, get those likes, get those clicks, and it's the wrong motivation.
Yeah, I agree. And it is popular to blame the internet.
Yeah.
But there's some truth to it. There's a lot of truth to it.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. But we can overcome. We can choose to ignore it. You can turn your phone off. You can disconnect from the net. I highly recommend people disconnect from the internet often and go read some comic books.
Yeah.
Go read some good stuff. Feed that mind.
Yeah, 100%. It could be used as a weapon of mass distraction.
It sure can.
Yeah.
It sure can. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, but being able to be discerning.
That's absolutely, Bear. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
that's very true.
And the thing is, that's always been around. You always had the media or reporting or whatever, some kind of, centralized information agency in one way or the other.
Oh, yeah.
But, now more than ever, it's easier to kind of become consumed by it. And you lose yourself within the whole thing. And you're kind of struggling to find your place, get your bearings, and stick to what it is you want to do and what brings you joy and what your purpose is, And that's the unfortunate part of it. But again, it is a tool. It is a tool.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to make sure you're using it to your advantage, Sometimes
it's like
tough.
a double-edged sword, If you don't know how to use it, you will cut yourself, and you could hurt yourself badly. But if you learn how to use it and discipline your use of it, then it can be an amazing tool. Look at what we're doing right now. We're able to connect. You're all the way across the country, and we can still have this conversation like we're sitting right next to each other. This is amazing. I work in tech as well. That's one of my side gigs is fixing computers and working in tech and shit. So, I find the technology amazing, but at the same time, there is that dark side. There is that ability to, really kind of add to depression. And so that's why I always recommend people, like I said, disconnect. Go find something that you love. Go read a story that brings you joy. Go watch a movie that makes you happy. Go spend time with your loved ones. We won't all be here forever. So enjoy your loved ones while you have them.
Yeah, even when, there's times when I'm frustrated with like a creative endeavor, whatever it may be, and sometimes the best thing to do is just get up and get away from it.
Yep, 100%.
Reset
sometimes you
yourself
got to disconnect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
It also gives you perspective. You get away from it so you can see like the overview of it instead of being like right up in it. Being in from seeing the forest from the trees, as it were.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Morb and Bear, thank you guys for giving Alterna a shout out. Bear and Morb, of course, giving King Cryptid a shout out as well. Thank you guys so much.
I am very much looking forward to King Cryptid. I missed the first couple of campaigns, but I was able to jump in on the most recent one, so I got them all coming to me.
Well, truth be told, you only missed the first one. I put out the first 4 issues in last year's.
Oh, no kidding. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Well,
every campaign I'm going to be putting 4 to 5 out. So, yeah, you're going to get 9 issues then. Oh, man, 9 issues in one shot. That's going to be nice.
I'm just going to sit down with a big old cup of coffee and enjoy some King Cryptid, man. I'm really looking forward to it. And by the way, this show, like, you have been kicking out the jams with this show recently, man.
Oh,
like, just
thank you,
some
man.
phenomenal guests. Like, this is seriously one of my favorite shows to watch. You know, it'll pop up in my feed. I'm like, oh wow, Pete's got them on. I gotta go check that out. And you know, I gotta go back and listen to a few of them just because there's some that I missed. But yeah, man, you've been doing a great job with this show. So I am honored to be here.
Thank you. I mean, I'm motivated to do it largely in part because I've been wanting to do something like this for a long time, but there's always, you know, you're busy, you make excuses, all this other stuff. And in large part, whenever I would do certain type of shows, especially the comic book radio show that got started about, I want to say a year and a half or so ago, might have been longer, but it was more of a sporadic thing. Maybe I'd do one show a month, you know, maybe I would do, it was crazy if I did one show a week.
Right.
And I would just kind of be doing stuff myself. I'd have the whole call-in part of the show, but I found that I was really gravitating a lot towards wanting other people, just to see other people have more in-depth kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
And eventually I was like, you know, that's just not my style to want to ask that of other people. You know, I've never been the person that's like, oh, I want to see other people do this thing or make that thing, or why don't they talk about that? You know, it's always been, I mean, I started my own comic company. I make my own comics. You know, when I want something to be out there, like I wanted a book like King Cryptid to be out there, so I'm putting a book like King Cryptid out there. So it's the same thing with this, where I'm like, well, I'll just do it, and it'll be a lot of fun because I'll get to have the conversations that I want to see play out.
Yeah, man.
And I've been sticking with it for almost 3 months or so, and we do, I think,
It's been amazing.
either 5 or 6 days a week.
It's incredible, man. I do a weekly show with my buddy Jason Unhinged. There we called Topicless, and I do a weekly show with my girl Flying Feline, the Happy Hour Hangout, both on Tuesdays. And you know that takes a lot. You know it. So I can't imagine having to set this up and do a show, almost daily show like this. But we must be the change we wish to see in the world, right?
Absolutely.
And so you are being the change you wish to see. There's something that you wish to see in the world, so you are bringing it forth. You're manifesting it, man. And it's a fantastic thing.
Thank you.
So I've really enjoyed these shows, man. Like, seriously.
I'm having a blast with it. I'm glad to hear that so many people are enjoying it too. Excellent. And that I'm getting to have a lot of really fun conversations. Sometimes we get into a bit of the woo-woo, a bit of the crazier stuff, you know, the deep diving into the paranormal and all kinds of other conspiratorial sort of things. And then, you know, it's all connected, so then we'll talk about ancient history and all kinds of other things as well. But the funny part to me is because even though this is comic book radio, I'm finding a lot of people are influenced by a lot of these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And this is what it provides, even like an inspiration for them, because we could sit here and talk about the artists and the characters and the books and the stories and this and that.
Right.
But it's great for me to have these conversations with people when they start talking about the other things that influence their storytelling or the things that have influenced their lives and put them on the path that they're on. And that's the stuff that I really love to see play out. Those are the conversations I love having with people. And I'm finding there's so many people that are interested in these kinds of topics. And it's interesting because when, you know, going back to the internet part, where it could be used for good or evil, like anything, right? Yeah. I'm finding that, you know, if you grew up in a time before it, you're kind of isolated in the aspect of thinking that, you know, does anyone else really like any of this weird stuff? Or is it just, you know, you don't really want to talk about it too loud.
Right, because you get those strange looks like, what? And you're like, what? You don't think about this stuff constantly? You don't think about, like, the weird, unexplainable stuff that happens often? And the, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years of strange stories that people have. No, okay, just me. All right. I
and it's fun to see that there's so many people out there that are connected with these kinds of things, that it's on their mind, you know. And I really love the conversations where it doesn't necessarily have to be, and it's fun to theorize and it's fun to expound upon things we don't know about and kind of throw out our best guess as to what it could be. But I love when people are bringing in concrete knowledge to it, and we're trying to figure out, well, how could that have been, and just stuff like that to me is great, because it's something that, again, we could talk about the comics, we could talk, and we do, and we talk about how to create, and we talk about the importance of storytelling and all of that as well, but it ties it all back to the fact that storytelling, which is a lot of what this show is about, is as old as humanity itself.
100%.
So
the first job, the oldest profession in the world.
Yeah, and whether these were stories being told out of our imaginations, or stories being told out of something we saw, or a combination thereof, it's as old as humankind, and it brings it all forward again. These are people that we never even shared a moment of time with them necessarily in a physical space, and yet what they've done, their impact on the world is so important that thousands or so years later, we're discussing it, and it has impacted what we're doing. So that's, to me, I think it's really important. It's interesting to see, because who knows, maybe thousands of years from now, someone's going to discuss what it is we're all talking about today.
I mean, hopefully, hopefully we make something as impactful on people's lives. But I mean, for millennia, how did humanity record its history? With storytelling. Before the written word, oral tradition was how they kept track of their history. How they passed down traditions. So I mean, storytelling is integral to the human experience. It's part of who we are as human beings. And that's how we keep ourselves going. That's how we inspire ourselves.
Absolutely. And speaking of, you seem to be really well versed in a lot of that stuff. Whenever I've had people on here talking about that, you make some really insightful comments in the chat.
Thank you.
I
really
where did that
enjoy
stem
it.
from?
I've always just been curious about the world. I've always had a thirst for knowledge. I remember just wanting to know more about everything. My mom tells me that my first words, instead of mom or dad, was "What's that?" I was always asking a question. I was always curious about things. And once I found out about the paranormal and cryptids and different things that might be considered occult, as it were, I wanted to know more. I was just curious, and my girl Feline and I, we have these conversations all the time, talking about different things, and it's just, there's certain synchronicities in the world, and there's certain things that happen. And if you look at, and this actually got a lot more in depth once I started studying mythology. I had to take a world mythologies class in college, and that just blew my mind, because the similarities in all the different, mythologies and the stories that they've told, there's always a great flood, the Epic of Gilgamesh, Noah's flood, and various other ones across the globe. The way there's pyramids all over this planet. Everywhere.
And the thing is, they're not just like some people I've talked to. They think they're just like a bunch of stones stacked into, forming a three-dimensional triangle or pyramid.
Sure, they just happen like that.
That would be crazy enough, though.
Right.
The fact that you can actually enter within. There's chambers, there's rooms, there's halls, there's perfect engineering throughout. That's what's really mind-boggling.
It really is, man. And to just blindly accept that, it just kind of happened like that. I refuse to just blindly accept anything. I question everything. I want to do an in-depth research on it. I want to do a deep dive on it. I want to actually get to the bottom of it. Power sources, exactly. I like to know. I guess I like to know the truth behind things. And getting back to the comics, I would read stuff, especially like Claremont. You and Joe Sontag were talking about the Savage Land and what's in Antarctica and whatnot. Yeah. A lot of the stuff that he would bring up in the X-Men, I had no concept of when I was a kid reading it. But then later on in life, I would hear some, dissertation or talk about this certain paranormal thing, and it would ping on one of those things that Claremont said, and I was like, oh, whoa, wait a minute, I've heard of that. And that would just make me hungrier for more knowledge.
Yeah.
So I mean, comic books have kind of driven that knowledge, that desire for knowledge. They're the reason. The comics books are the reason why I love to read anyway. My dad got me 3 comic books when I was a kid: Spider-Man, Batman, and the Fantastic Four. I was 3 years old. I couldn't actually read the words, but I could tell what was happening because of the pictures. And then, my mom was teaching me to read with flashcards, and I was very motivated to learn how to read because I wanted to know what Spider-Man and Ben Grimm and Batman were saying. And I remember this fog just lifting and being able to fully understand what these stories were about once I learned to read. And from then on, it's all over. As you can see, I love books. Like, give me books, give me knowledge, give me stories, feed my mind. And that's set me on my path from there. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was talking about this the other day, but printed books are actually the ultimate renewable source of entertainment. There's so much crap thrown against them because, you got to cut down a tree, or you got to do this or do that. You got to have the ink. You got to have a whole process and everything. Yeah, there's a first part of its life where it's not so environmentally friendly. But the rest of it is. The rest of it, you have it for forever.
Once it's made.
Yep. Whereas digital, which is being pushed more and more as some kind of like green sort of thing, you always need to have a power source and a device, and all the things that go into creating that device, and all the things that go into creating the batteries for that device, or the power that needs to be maintained, or the server that it needs to be kept on, and that needs to be powered, and vice versa, for forever and ever and ever, unless they shut it all off or it all breaks or whatever happens,
what
or
happens
that
if the
file
power
gets
goes
corrupted, and then that's it. But
Exactly.
For the book, never again.
As long as I have a candle and my book, I can read. I appreciate the convenience of having like a tablet full of digital comics so I can take like an entire collection with me when I go on vacation. But give me a physical book. I love the tactile feel of it. I love the smell of the print. I don't know if you're one of those people that will smell the comics. It's one of the reasons why I love alternative books so much.
Yeah.
That newsprint. There is something about the smell of ink on newsprint that just immediately transports me back to, my younger years of reading comics as a kid and just being transported to these other worlds. That kinesthetic memory, it just takes me away. And that's part of the escapism. It's part of that whole thing, that tactile feel.
And then, yes, not to mention digital, they can always censor it later. Print, they got to go through a whole revision process and put it out. But that original version, that's still going to be there unless they run around and everyone gets their stuff together and decides to put it in the shredder or in the fire. And the likelihood of that occurring.
It's awful hard, though. It's awful hard.
Is difficult, yeah. So that's the thing that I love about, obviously, the physical media and books being right there. But
DVDs, movies have. I always advocate for everybody like buying what they love on DVDs or Blu-rays. Have a server. If you want digital movies, make yourself a home server. Have a hard drive with all of your favorite movies on it, so they cannot touch them. All of your favorite books, if you want them digitally. Learn to do this stuff. I realize that it's a lot, but you can do it. And in the long run, you will be happier because they cannot take away the movies. Netflix or Hulu or Amazon, this will be leaving in a few short months. That's not going to happen if you have that stuff at home on your own personal server or on a DVD. You can watch it at any time.
It reminds me
the
when,
ultimate convenience.
Remember those commercials when Disney would have it go back into the Disney vault? Remember those commercials?
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
A lot of things need to go back into the
They
Disney
did that
vault
just
right
to make an artificial scarcity,
Yeah. That's what I wonder, too, sometime about this as well. When they go all a bit overboard with censoring or editing or providing some kind of, this is not a socially type of thing nowadays. We got to warn you. You might see something from 50 years ago that might take you back and go,
who
what?
knows? You might have to consider perspectives outside of what you know.
You might clutch the non-existent pearls. And I always wonder, because then I guarantee there's a spike that occurs of people buying physical. I hope they're buying secondhand, though. But it always feels to me as if, is that a ploy that they're trying to possibly get, because we all know physical sales have been slumping on those media for a while.
Right.
And I always wonder, is that something that they're kind of trying to do and play both
It
sides?
wouldn't surprise me.
You know,
honestly,
because they're
wouldn't
always
surprise
playing
me.
both sides. Corporations, governments, whatever it may be, are always playing both sides.
Oh, yeah.
Peacekeeper and warmonger at the same time.
Well, the person that sells the pill also peddles the pandemic, you know? So, you know, they've got, like you said,
Well,
play
the
both
problem and
sides.
the solution, and, you know, there you go. And that's how you stay in business. Because if everything was like, well, here's a solution, here's a solution, here's a solution, it's like, oh, all the problems are fixed. Looks like they don't need us anymore.
You know, I also feel like that kind of breeds dependence upon the government. You know, they want people to be dependent because, you know, if you're dependent upon somebody, if that suddenly gets shut off, or, you know, if you say or do something they don't like, they can immediately cut that off, and then what are you going to do? You know, then you don't have a way to support yourself.
And that's the thing too, is that I wish this was just us theorizing or referencing a book, a dystopian book. But the thing is that this has happened, this is happening in various places.
Yeah.
And it's
Cyberpunk dystopias are filled with this kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane to me when people are like, that kind of stuff doesn't happen. It just tells me your ignorance on history and also what's currently happening at different parts of the world. You know, so the fact that we're able to do what we're doing, I think people really, you know, don't stop doing what it is you're doing in terms of creating, in terms of wanting to get what you want out there in the world, because the second that we begin to self-censor on that level, creatively, philosophically, whatever it may be, the second that we start to become more and more silent, that's the second where bad things start to happen. You know, when there's a breakdown in communication, when there's something that occurs where you can't talk about something anymore, you know, just think about on a very small level, right?
Yeah.
So we'll think about something myopically here before we talk about it on a larger scale. So think about the fact that between a relationship between two people, and once there's no more communication left, you can't talk to the person anymore. That relationship is not long for this world.
No.
You know, and depending how the two individuals react to it, it could turn violent, or it could just become, you know what, maybe if we're mature about it, we can at least go our separate ways and have peace that way. But there is no unity together in that situation once the communication has broken down. So if we're to take that and then expound upon that on a larger scale, you know, well, people wonder, well, how do bad things happen? How does this happen? How does that happen? We see it day to day. You know, there's situations among families, there's situation among people who used to be friends, best of friends, maybe even.
Yeah.
You know, and it breaks down, and various things occur. So it's like kind of want to stoke that mindset a bit, to want to have people not communicate, to tell you what you can and can't talk about, because that's what that is. That curbs that. As soon as you start wanting to curb that mentality and control it, you're running out of options then. There's not good ones left.
Well, you know, the old saying, as above, so below. That, you know, to me, that means what happens on the micro happens on the macro as well. If they can, you know, change this one little thing here, it will eventually happen up here. You know, it'll happen on the larger scale. You know, if they can get people to stop communicating on a micro level, then at a macro level, we have mass, you know, lack of communication. You know, and then you have, you know, discordia everywhere. All is discordia.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. That's why it's so important for people to get out there and, you know, if you want to make a certain story, if you want to have a certain character, if you want to tell it a certain way, you know, whether or not that story is going to succeed is going to play largely a part, should play largely a part based on who's going to be purchasing it, reading it, who's your customer, who the audience is, you know, and
100%.
that is something to remove even that option from occurring.
Yeah.
You know, and again, so to go back even to ancient history, that's what always it intrigues me, because it's all a mystery. None of us are going to concretely know for sure. Everything's a really, really good guess or an awful guess.
Yeah.
But a
Yeah.
lot of the time it's turned into it's the absolute truth. And when it's treated in that way, it shuts off the need to explore further and to test different avenues of thought to see, well, maybe that's how it came to be. And then there's
Right.
also when it becomes so staunchly defended in the face of new evidence that contradicts the old, that's when it gets really interesting to me to see the lengths that are gone. And this happens over and over again, you know, and
Mental
then
gymnastics.
yeah, and then you give it 100 to 300 or so years, and then they go, oh yeah, that person, we ruined their life. We're sorry.
Yeah.
Let's put up a statue now.
Yeah, we were wrong. Whoopsie. I mean, it doesn't do any good for that person that, got completely raked over the coals, but, at least we're admitting it now. And it feels like they don't want people asking questions. Last night, Phil and I were watching Ancient Apocalypse. And yes, exactly like fractals, You want to see that we live in a fractal universe, just consider the fact that humans come out of other humans. But we were watching Ancient Apocalypse last night, and the fact that they go after him so hard in the paint to stop him from saying what he's saying just shows how deeply entrenched they are and how much of their identity is wrapped up in this thing that they have found or whatever being true, and that they can't accept new information. It's like Bruce Lee said in your intro, you got to be like water. That includes your mind. Your mind's got to be able to flow. You've got to be able to accept new information. You've got to think critically about it. You've got to analyze what is being given to you and see, if it holds true. Yeah. Because I feel as humans, we do have the ability to pick up on truth. There are certain things when you hear them, they ring true. You can feel it. There's a resonance. Tesla said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. The truth has a certain energy, it has a certain frequency, it has a certain vibration, and we can feel it. So it is up to us to be discerning and to think about the information that we are being given. That's question everything. Think for yourself and question authority. That's one of my axioms. Always think for yourself.
It's amazing the lengths that we've seen throughout history. Various people, usually people in power.
Yes. Well, they've got something to lose, don't they?
Yeah, and they manage to rile up the people at the ground level.
Yeah.
That's usually how that works. It's very rare when it comes from the ground level up. It's usually, and it doesn't have to be from the utmost power in position, but it's usually levels of. And then that's what occurs on the ground level to make them all go, yeah, that person's a lunatic. We don't listen to that person. So when even this, when people, a lot of people nowadays can talk about cancel culture doesn't exist, right? Cancel culture's always existed.
Yes.
Always.
Yep.
Always. Again,
Mob mentality.
It's one of those things of look throughout history. That kind of thing has always happened, ruining the reputation.
Trials. Excuse me, sorry.
And holy smokes, the Salem witch trials look like nothing compared to the Spanish Inquisition.
Right.
Yeah, and then there's even other things that look like nothing compared to those guys. So it's absolutely, I mean, heck, even look at whether you believe it is truth or not. Look at every kind of mythology. Look at every religion. Look at the story of Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Talk about going to lengths to cancel the guy. And then, like I said before,
right.
hundreds of years later, And then even then, there's people that come along and will use the philosophy, the teachings, the following, and bastardize it for their own gain.
And try to rebrand it as something that they've come up with.
Exactly. And this has been done time and time again to various ideas, people, etc. throughout history. Yeah. So when we see anything like this happen in modern times and people are just kind of saying it doesn't exist, I'm like, man, it must be great to be you.
Hey, they do say ignorance is bliss, man. I don't know if
Until
I buy
you're
into that.
hit with reality, and then it's like, man, why didn't anybody tell me? It's like, what are you talking about? We're trying to tell you for years.
Yeah, I mean, there's this long line of people that have been trying to wake you up for millennia, and well, you keep killing them. You know, you keep censoring them or casting them out, and I don't know, maybe listen.
Yeah.
Close the mouth, open the mind. Listen more than.
And
you
that's
speak.
and again, to bring it back to stories, that's what I think is so valuable about stories, is because we're able to kind of run our own simulation within a story and play it out. And really good storytellers could make it seem as if these. Are you sure this isn't real? You sure that these aren't based on actual people that have lived this? So it's so immersive, it's so in depth within the story, and the characters are so well developed that it's almost weird to even call them characters. And the settings are so fleshed out, and these worlds, if they're not our own, they sure feel real.
That verisimilitude.
So you're running into situations that you can play out. And go, well, if this, then that, then the other thing. There's a lot of bad stories that are being written, not just nowadays. I mean, they've always kind of been written. Bad stories have always been around, but it feels like now more than ever, the kind of story that is being put out all the time is just, these things happen because they were written to happen this way. As opposed to whenever you write any kind of story, whenever you have anything, things have to happen because something made them happen. There has to be the reason, there has to be a catalyst for why this event occurred, why that reaction is occurring, why that character is there, why that character feels the way they feel about this situation. Every single aspect has to have a motivation that's there, and it can't just be because the writer said so.
Deus Ex Machina and all that. Things don't happen in a vacuum. Like you said, things happen for a reason. There's got to be a catalyst that kicks off a certain event that happens, that drives a character to feel this way. There's always something that starts something. Things don't happen in a vacuum. Things don't just spontaneously happen. And coincidences, I don't believe in those. I believe that the universe is rarely ever that lazy. So
absolutely.
Yeah. There's always got to be a starting point.
That's the funny part. I'm surprised, and I don't know if it's happened. I haven't kept up with DC Comics, like the actual comics, in so long. But I'm surprised that at this point, and again, I think if it happened, I'd at least hear about it through the grapevine, that they haven't decided to declare Batman as the world's craziest conspiracy theorist. No longer is he the world's greatest detective.
Right.
Oh, he's the crazy guy with the strings on the board and the, this is that, And then that used to be reserved for, like, the Question being down that path, right?
Yeah. But I don't know, man.
Do they even produce anything that involves the Question anymore? I don't even know if they do.
They absolutely do not. At least not as far as I know. The Question was created by Steve Ditko, and they've kind of done a little bit of demonizing of Ditko over the years because of his own personal politics and the way he saw the world. And his rejection of the mainstream comics. I mean, I heard stories about him using his old Amazing Spider-Man pages as cutting boards, which, as an art fan and, a Spider-Man fan, just kind of hurt me inside. But, hey, that's his personal philosophy. That's his stuff. He can do whatever he wants. But, no, I don't think they do. I don't think any of the writers out there currently could handle the Question in a way that would actually do the character justice, because look at what they do with the characters they currently have that they supposedly understand. I mean, I worked in my local comic shop up until August of last year, from 2015 up until August of last year, and I watched the quality of these books just decline and decline and decline and decline. People would come in saying, "Hey, I just watched this new Marvel movie. My kids love this stuff, and I used to collect back in the day. What's worth checking out now? What's good on the wall?" And I look at the wall, and I'm thinking to myself, not a darn thing on that wall. Here, let me direct you to some back issues. Here's this trade by Mark Millar. Here's this trade by Garth Ennis. And I'm thinking in my head, there's all these amazing indie comics online, but I'm in a shop. We got to sell this product, and I can't say that. So, I had to thread that needle pretty carefully, and I ended up pushing people towards classic stories. Dark Phoenix Saga, God Loves, Man Kills, the Black Alien Costume Saga. I mean,
otherwise they're not going to purchase anything they're happy with, really.
No. I mean, I can't in good conscience send somebody home with a Tom King Batman book. Like, I just can't. It's because we had like 25 people picking up Batman on a regular basis, right? And then that whole Tom King storyline with Bat, Cat. Oh Lord.
Oh, didn't they've ruined the whole outcome of that, right? Didn't they put something in the New York Times or whatever? They took out an ad and it totally.
Well, I mean, we had people drop that book even before they got to that point.
Yeah.
We went from 25 to 3 people picking up Batman. 3 people picking up Batman. Batman should be selling gangbusters every month. Spider-Man went down to 10 people as opposed to the 25, 30 people that would normally get it.
I'm sorry if you said this before. Is the shop still around or?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
okay.
the shop is still there. The owner sold it to another former customer, Jack. He's doing a great job with it. He's gotten a lot more manga in there now because that's what sells. That's where the stories are at. That's what the kids are digging on. And so he's doing pretty good so far. I'm happy to see it. Jack's a good dude. I'm happy to see that the shop is still continuing. I still go pick up books there. I don't pick up as many as I used to because I spend more money on backing crowdfunders, backing independent comics. So yeah, it's still there. I had the opportunity to buy the shop, but that wasn't the route that I wanted to go. I worked at a comic shop up in New Hampshire for a while, and coming down here in Florida and getting to work in my my childhood comic shop. I mean, this shop it's across a parking lot from the Christian private school I went to. So I would sneak out of the school on my lunch break to go buy my comics and say hi to Vanessa. She'd known me since I was 10 years old. So I'd go buy my comics, and then I would have to hide them in my backpack. And I wouldn't touch them until I left the school because comics are the devil. D-E-B-I-L, devil. So, I would hold off until I got home, and then I would unwind from my day. I would read my comics and just absolutely love it. That was my escape. That was, that it fed my mind, But yeah, it's still there, still up and kicking. I wish there was better content for him to sell, but he's doing his best to navigate, man. Back issues sell. I mean, that's the truth of it. Back issues and trades of classic stories always sell. That's why they keep doing the reprints.
Yeah.
I wish they'd stop recoloring things, though.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the recolor of Weapon X.
Oh. I don't wanna.
No.
The Barry Windsor Smith story.
Yeah, the Barry Windsor Smith story.
I don't wanna touch it. I don't wanna. No.
No, and you're right not to, man. Everybody go find the classic stuff because they printed on this high quality glossy paper. BWS knew what he was doing to the point where he planned the colors to be printed on newsprint so they looked right. Once you take those vibrant colors, because they had to be vibrant, because, this, when you print on newsprint, it really soaks up the ink. So if you want it to look vibrant, you really got to punch up the saturation. So when they take those original files and then put them on this new high glossy paper, the colors look gaudy. They look blown out. They look oversaturated.
Do they not have anyone that knows how to adjust those levels? Or I don't know.
I'm going to go with no.
That's just, it's not that tough.
I mean, all it takes is a little thought, a little forethought and a little bit of planning. But I think the biggest problem is that we have a lot of people working in the mainstream industry now that don't actually care about comics. They didn't grow up with them. The Marvel and DC have become, whether we like it or not, they've become these big IPs, and they're recognizable. So we have these people that, want to be a part of that because it's something that's popular. They don't necessarily have the passion or care to take care of things properly. We don't have anybody that knows why the colors looked like that back in the day, why they were that saturated. So they just, okay, it looks good, it's a crisp, clean file, let's send it off to the printer. They may have the knowledge of setting up the printing and making sure the file looks correct, getting it to the printer and all that, but they don't understand the motivations behind why it was set up the way it was to begin with.
Yeah, and it's strange to me. It really is, because it's not that difficult.
Yeah,
You just need, you could just have someone that took some kind of 6-month course or just even looked up a tutorial on YouTube and do the color correction easy peasy.
Well, I mean, put at bare minimum, maybe take a high quality scan of some actual newsprint and then just put that as a layer behind the colors and let that show.
Yeah, that's what we
just
do with all
bit.
of our current digital at Alterna. That's what we do. We actually put newsprint over it as a layer and let the colors come through, and it creates a simulated effect. It looks like digital, like you're reading newsprint, but on digital.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. Why could they not do that? I mean, it gives it a classic feel too.
Yeah.
I guess I grew up with this stuff. I've been reading comics since I was 3. They've been a huge part of my life this whole time. And I guess there are certain things that I guess I just understand, that you pick up on. You do something often enough, you kind of, it becomes part of you. It becomes intrinsic to your being, as it were. And I guess it just makes sense to me. But I guess getting back to it, the reason why we don't see stuff like that is because there's not anybody in those positions that care or know. Nobody higher above that is there to tell them that this is the way.
That's true. Yeah. It hasn't been run like the way you would mostly see professional sports teams run. Where you would get that, the farm system, you'd have the current players, and then you'd have management, but management used to be players, and so on and so forth, generations and generations of these people, and most of the people, if not almost every single one of them that is in a management position, knew what it was like to play the game.
100%.
And they played at some level. Some having better success than others in certain positions or whatever it may have been, but they knew how to play. They knew what it was like. They knew what you'd be in those positions, what you'd be going through. But it feels like, so it feels like, you would automatically think, okay, well, let's say who would be editor, like chief editor of the X-Men books, like the head editor.
Somebody who knew how to write them.
You'd probably think maybe Chris Claremont.
I mean, that's just logical, but, logic has kind of been kicked out the window the last few years, so. Yeah,
and that's kind of how it was before. You'd have a lot of these writers become editors and so on and so forth, and that's usually how that progressed.
Look at Jim Shooter.
Yeah, now there's so many editors, and I mean, assistant editors they're kind of like glorified paper pushers of like, here's this email from this person. So you have all these people in these positions that have no idea what it's like to write on a certain level or create on a certain level, and then meanwhile they're put in like these managerial positions. It's like Office Space, the way you're being promoted so that you can't do as much damage directly.
But that logic doesn't track, because they're doing horrendous damage.
But it's a different corporate structure with a different product output, so they are doing damage. And it's strange because it seems purposeful. So obviously there must be someone wanting it to be that way, or someone who just doesn't care that it's that way.
Yes.
Which is very odd to me, because if I was in charge of the company that purchased a company for their IP or whatever, I'd be fuming about, we spent like $5 billion on you guys.
Yep.
And you're just flushing it down the toilet.
You might as well put it in a pile and burn it. Yeah,
I've said it before. I think the best thing that could happen for the modern comics industry is for the big two, specifically the big two, to stop making new comics. It is very clear their parent companies don't really want them putting out great new content. They're not getting the best creators that they could get.
No.
They're penny
They can't
pinching
afford
the
'em.
whole way. Exactly. And it's encouraging a culture within the system that is antithetical to creativity.
Yes.
So you have this mindset play out, and people go, well, then what are they going to do to get stories for the movies or the shows? But the thing is, they have like upwards of 70 years?
70,
easily
80 years worth of
material?
stories. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many stories out there, it's impossible to put all of them and adapt all the characters, all the stories, whatever they
Yep.
want to do. And then on top of that, I'll throw in the face just 2 characters that were created without the need of the comics, and this was at a point where both of the comics were doing very well. The first one, Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
The second one, Daryl Dixon. Walking
Oh,
Dead.
yeah.
And that's not
100%.
even a Marvel or DC character. Imagine
Yeah.
if they put Daryl Dixon, if there was a deal that was worked out, and you put him in a Walking Dead issue. That issue
they
probably
did.
would have been... Oh, they did?
They eventually did work him into the towards the end of the series. Yep, they did.
Well, that explains then why Kirkman probably ended the series. But
Well, I mean, they got up to what, 150 issues or something like that. I mean, that's the longest zombie movie I've ever seen.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. I got out at like 42 or 43. I got
Dude,
out... Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I think it was around issue 50 when they lost the prison, and Carl and his dad Rick were running, and they found this house, and I was in a room full of people because I was doing a show called Last Wednesday way back then. It was a TV show where we talked about comics and news and stuff like that. It was at the beginning of YouTube way back in 2006. So I'm sitting in a room full of people, and we're all reading Walking Dead because it's the hottest book, that's out right now. So everybody else had read it, and I'm reading it, and I see Rick go, "Wait, do you hear that?" And I was like, "Man, this book is so lazy. They're not even putting sound." Oh, wait a minute. I know what's happening. Rick is going insane. He's going to pick up. I stuck my finger in the book. I held it up, and I said, "Rick is going insane. He's going to pick up this phone that is not ringing, and it's going to be his dead wife on this phone, and I'm going to be done with this book forever." And sure enough, that's what happened, and I never touched another issue of it. Ever. Yep. If I can predict what you're going to do with your story, you're not being that creative. I'm just saying.
Well,
I don't think I'm that intelligent, honestly. You know?
Well, you're a very intelligent fella. I was going to say, don't
appreciate
discredit
that.
yourself in such a way.
I appreciate that, man.
But that's the thing. So knowing how to predict the way certain stories are going to play out in certain scenarios, that's the reason why, for me, I'm just it's baffling. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, of course that's the way it is.
Yeah.
But it would be great to see instead, and some people go, okay, well, what happens with the rest of the comic industry? What happens with comic shops? Well, to me, it's kind of like they're free. They're free. They can get other books for the shelves. They can get truly all new, all different books. And then
They can support
the
indie
big-
books.
Yeah, and the big two could easily just reproduce classics till they're blue in the face,
Right.
and just you
course.
can mine those for films and the TV and the video games and whatever else you got to do. And obviously that's what their corporate parents want. And I think maybe we might see that play out within 10 years or so, maybe less.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
the way things are going, it could be less. You know, and I think where they messed up, like especially with the Marvel movies, because we had about a decade of really good, kind of almost closely hewn comic book stories in the movies. And then they kicked out the comic book writers, and the Hollywood people came in, and they're like, "Oh no, we know what's up. You comic book writers can go away now."
It kind of
And-
coincided a bit too with that Disney buyout, especially for Marvel anyway, when they were Marvel Studios,
Dude, I honestly think that they would have done a lot better if the movies, at least, would have been better for us as fans if they had stayed Marvel Studios.
Oh yeah.
I was terrified when I heard that Disney was buying Marvel. I was like, no, that meme of what's his name from The Office. No. Yeah. So
The
I
worst
knew that
company
this
they
was
could
going
have
to go
sold
bad.
to.
Oh my god.
The worst company they could have sold to.
Yeah, no, thank you. You know,
Does anybody know, or do you know, anyone in the chat or Luke? Do you guys know why they were they in a position that they felt like they had to sell? Like I know back in the '90s when they were going bankrupt, and they kind of started selling off various things. And film rights was one of them, and that's how Fox and Columbia, Sony got certain rights.
Right.
But
yeah,
it seemed like they sold when they really didn't need to sell.
To my knowledge, when they started the MCU, like to get Iron Man funded, that's why it was put out by Paramount. I think it was Merrill Lynch kind of backed them, and if that movie did not succeed, then Merrill Lynch would have owned all of their characters, except for Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, and X-Men, because those were already tied up with and then the Hulk. You know, Universal Studios, Universal still owns the Hulk. That's why we'll never get a solo Hulk film. They have a deal worked out with, you know, Marvel and Disney to put the Hulk in different, you know, various movies and stuff and TV shows, but you'll never see a solo Hulk film because they don't want Universal to distribute it. You know, that was part of their deal, and they're never going to let those rights go. Sony is never going to let Spider-Man go. You know, that's why they've developed their own kind of side universe with all of his ancillary characters. And I don't know if we'll ever see, you know, think we'll ever see them free of those other companies. I think it's crazy that that Disney bought Fox really to get the X-Men back and the Fantastic Four back. Like, that is just
to streamline distribution rights on Star Wars as well.
Fox
still owned the distribution rights for Star Wars.
I didn't even think about that. You're totally right, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is insane that, you know, it just shows you right there. Antitrust laws, what are those?
I mean,
we don't need
you've
no
got a
stinking
team of
antitrust laws.
Yeah. Well, you've got a team of awful lawyers that you know can skirt around those laws with quite a lot of efficiency. Then I mean, they kind of become moot.
And conflict of interest apparently doesn't exist when it comes to
What's that?
You know, federal government owning stock in various companies. Insider trading doesn't exist for those people.
Oh, totally. No. It exists for the little people, but not for them.
Yeah. Poor Martha Stewart.
Yeah, you just weren't powerful enough, Martha.
But
sorry.
right.
You've got to take the blame for everybody that can't be blamed.
But it's interesting to me to look at it because of the fact that Disney's track record, and this has seemed to be brought up the past couple of days or so, I'm seeing it be thrown around. But Disney's track record is largely, obviously, about adaptation. Adaptation of public domain. But now, if they own it and they can adapt it, they're going to do what they do with it. And what they've largely done, you even notice, right? How is there not even like an actual, like a Mickey Mouse movie? Right? You realize that there's no actual theatrical Mickey Mouse movie. There's been like various things, but there's not just like you can point to it. I mean, Super Mario now has 2 movies, and one of them that's done very well. The other one is basically like Ancient Aliens, the movie.
You know, there's a certain charm. I mean, it's like one of those movies that's so bad it kind of horseshoes around to being almost good in a terrible way.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I was like, you know, to me it would have been saved completely. Not good still, but saved in my mind. If at the very end, Mario picks up the phone, it rings, right? You know, he's like, Mario Brothers, blah blah blah, right? And he's like, what? You want what? And he hangs up the phone, right? And he'd be like, Luigi, you're not gonna believe this. Like some Japanese Nintendo or something wants to buy our story, and then end.
That would have been a very cool meta commentary. You know, that would have at least connected it a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen like any kind of behind the scenes on that film. It was a complete disaster.
Oh, train wreck.
Oh, and it almost killed Bob Hoskins.
Yeah.
Like he got electrocuted and almost died making that film. And, you know, Dennis Hopper's like, yeah, I was in it because, you know, my kids needed shoes. So, you know, whatever. But, yeah, that movie almost killed poor Bob Hoskins, and he regretted it the rest of his life. Yeah, but the new one was actually a lot of fun. I enjoyed that movie a lot more than I expected to. Yeah. You know, and it's because, you know, they actually, it seemed like they had writers that actually cared about working in like the little things from the video games and like the mythos that they've created.
Yeah, and I still haven't seen it. I don't know if I ever will, but I've heard people really enjoy it. I've heard people give the same kind of commentary. Because I'm so done with a lot of modern stuff. It's hard for me. I'm turning into an old man real fast.
I hear you.
But
I hear you.
I'm more likely to now dig through the decades of stuff that I missed out on. And find stuff from like the 50s, the 60s, and so on, and just be like
such amazing stuff. You know,
yeah,
there's
across
a
the board,
wealth of
music, movies,
entertainment.
books, comics. I could never get to it the rest of my life. There's so much of it out there, and
No
falling
reason
in love
to-
with all that stuff. You know?
No reason to look at any of this new stuff that's written by people that don't care and have no passion. They've got no skin in the game.
Or
They
worse,
just want-
if you don't like it and you express that, holy smokes! Some of the vitriol gets tossed your way from these people that are involved. It's one thing when
dare
there's
you.
people who love it and they're the fans too, and then you get into it. That's always been the way. That's usually expected.
Yeah.
But now with social media, and you'll get certain people coming along, and then they just kind of chastise you, or
Yeah.
even worse, sometime. Really run up the ad hominem attacks.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, wow, okay.
I mean, that seems to be the way of the internet now. The internet always chooses violence, and I feel like it's because a lot of these people, like, they wrap up so much of their personality, like their being, in these IPs, in these terrible stories, frankly. That if you have any kind of criticism, you're literally criticizing who they are. You're attacking their very being, so they must attack back with vitriol. They've got to. That's just a reaction. It's a knee-jerk reaction. And it's sad. I feel like we should try to foster discussion. What's up, Jimmy? I feel like we should try to foster discussion about things. And it's really sad for me because. Hey, Shattermare, what's up? It's really sad for me because, I grew up with such amazing stuff. I mean, we're about the same age. We grew up in like almost a golden age of comics and storytelling and movies and TV shows. Like from from the late 60s up until like the early 90s, there was just amazing stuff. Heck, even towards the end of the 90s, Farscape is one of my absolute favorite series of all time. One of the best sci-fi shows made in the last 30 years, in my opinion. And it holds up to this day. I mean, Jim Henson's Creature Shop doing aliens out in the far-flung reaches of space. Yes, please, sign me up. But so these younger fans, these new fans, have no barometer for what is good. They have nothing to compare it against. All they've got is this dreck that they've been shoveled, saying this is actually good, and it's not.
And they're actively encouraged to look at history, look at what came before, even immediate history, and dismiss it.
Yes,
outright.
Yeah, and that's a travesty, in my opinion. If we do not learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. And it seems that we just refuse to learn from history. You can. I've always said you can, like the old saying says, and I've always said, tacked on, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. You can lead a man to knowledge, but you cannot make him think.
Absolutely.
He must do that on his own.
Absolutely.
I mean, all we can do is be the change we wish to see in the world, Pete. We keep bringing that light to people, keep bringing these stories, keep bringing the quality to people, and you got to hope that eventually it'll click. Eventually they'll get it. Eventually they'll pick up on
that's
it.
the thing, is that you can't force that upon people.
No.
And I see a lot of people get really frustrated in that sphere of it, and I get it at first, but you really have to come to a point where you eventually go, if they're gonna see the light eventually, right? It's gonna come on their own terms at their own time, and sometimes they never do, and that's just how it is. And you walk a different path. And that's just kind of how it's been for forever. But when it comes to certain things, so going back a bit, talking about the Disney takeover, which is insane when you think about how it happened, right? So they swallow up Marvel, they swallow up Lucasfilm, and they swallow up 20th Century Fox. Columbia, Sony is probably sitting there going like, we're next.
Yeah, they're starting to shake.
Paramount, Universal, they're like, okay, how's this going to go down? You know, are we just going to lose a war of attrition? Are they basically going to outcompete us to the point that we can't compete anymore? And then they'll just, kind of like what Diamond did with the various distributors in the 90s.
Oh, man.
So, and then all of a sudden you have this monopoly take place. And you can argue largely right now that, especially because that's not all that Disney owns. Disney owns a lot of stuff, a lot of companies. Then you're talking about, if you look even deeper past that, there's other layers where then you can talk about Vanguard and BlackRock and all kinds of other investment firms that they are the ones that kind of own the owners.
Insidious tentacles in every single pie they can get their hands on.
And then there's like people who own them by telling them what to do, what to invest in, and how to, get that out there, and what initiatives are going to be pushed throughout those various companies and corporate entities. And they do certain things to get money, and if they don't do these certain things, they don't get money. So it becomes, it's not about the age-old thing of like, oh, well, how do you make money? Well, you make the best thing possible that hopefully appeals to the most people possible, and then they like it because it's of good quality, and then they keep coming back, and you treat them well, and blah, 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 right? You keep giving them quality and so on, and that's not how it is in modern times. There's a lot of other things that are occurring behind the scenes, and I don't know for how long this has occurred. It seems like it's been occurring for a very long time. But we're just really seeing a lot of the fruits of their hard work taking place.
He who controls the media controls the populace.
Exactly.
I mean, what was it Malcolm X said? Be careful of the media, because it will have you hating those that you should love and loving those you should hate. I totally butchered that quote, but he was basically saying, be careful of what the media is telling you, because they will spin it in whatever way they want you to. What's up, Dean? Good to see you. So yeah, again, it goes back to, you've got to have an open mind, but you've got to be discerning. You've got to, the truth has a vibration, has a resonance, and you can feel it if you listen. If you are willing to be still and listen, as the age-old saying goes.
Yeah, and there's that thing that hits you, the cognitive dissonance feeling that hits you when you're just like, you feel a little bit when something's not ringing true, when something is hitting you the wrong way. Of course, unless you're a psychopath and you don't feel certain things.
Right. But there is also that.
And there's a lot of those, and they have a lot of power sometimes.
True.
So if you're a normal functioning, rational human being, and you have emotions and intelligence and about you, you feel these things. You feel a certain way. You feel that confliction inside of you when you're like, that's not hitting right. You know? And it's not that it's not the dinner you had or whatever going on. It's something else. Something is ringing between your ears and is not hitting your heart the right way, nor is it hitting your mind the right way. Yep. And that's what occurs. But when you hear the opposite,
as most people's pineal gland is, they can usually still, tell when they're being lied to or being gaslit.
Yeah, exactly. And so to see that occur when you do come across a certain thing and you're like, yeah, you know what, that feels right. That feels right. That sounds right. That checks out. I'm going to look into it further.
Yes.
But it's pointing me down a different direction. It's like the start of the show with the They Live scene. Yeah. And she's like, I've got one that can see.
Be able to see. Look.
And there's a manipulation of language nowadays that takes place, which is why, as a writer, as a storyteller, as a publisher, this is such a hot button important issue, because we're seeing so many things take place where certain words, certain ideas, context, various things like that are being manipulated and sometimes often removed and replaced and told that, no, this is what it means. This is what that is what you mean now.
Yes.
And you're like, that's not what I mean. And then you're always kind of playing on the defensive and trying to catch up because the rules for this game are always changing. But it's because the language is constantly being manipulated. And it has, at the core of it, the core concept, the core idea. So I could tell you, like, this coffee is orange juice. And you're like, no, it's coffee. And I'm like, no, it's orange juice. We call this orange juice now. But the thing is, it's still a coffee.
Some awfully black orange juice I've got in this cup.
It's still a coffee. And that's the thing is it's a distraction with that language as well, because at the core of it, right, look at humanity. We all have different languages all over the place. Interesting how that came about. but that's a topic for another day. So, so we all over the world, they call this thing something different.
Yeah.
But we're all talking about that one thing. But we're all getting so caught up in this is what you call it, this is what it means, this is how it is. And the reason for that is because it is being, and I think that people are getting so upset about it, is because it is being then taken to a legal aspect.
Yeah.
It's being put to define things with legality. And that is where it becomes a really weird scenario. You start having the government defining your speech and your words for you.
And that is a dangerous thing. I mean, look at 1984, look at, A Brave New World. I mean, in 1984 and Brave New World, they're a little bit different. Orwell was afraid that, people wouldn't have access to information. We have, certain amount of that. Huxley was afraid of people, give them bread and circuses and they'll never revolt, right? They'll have the information, but they won't care. And I mean, does that sound familiar at all? I mean, we've got this thing called the internet, and it's this amazing wealth of human knowledge, except for all the stuff that was destroyed in the Library of Alexandria, which still bugs me to this day. But we've got this sum total of the human knowledge, and we can carry it around in our pocket. You know what I mean? And what do we do with it? We TikTok and we argue with people about just the most asinine things instead of learning, instead of learning from one another, instead of sharing, what makes us unique and awesome and celebrating one another as these unique and awesome individuals that come from these various backgrounds. We use it to bludgeon people into being conformists. We use it to bludgeon people into, towing the line as opposed to thinking and learning. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And to touch upon what's being said right here, that's a tremendous commentary. The fact that in 1984, the thing that is really what will provide you with truth and beauty of the world is love. And that's ultimately 100%. The thing trying to be constantly suppressed.
Yeah. I mean, love your fellow man. No. That guy over there, he's the bad guy. Then they go over to that guy. Hey, that guy over there, he's pulling this shady stuff over here. You better hate that person. It's divide and conquer. The oldest trick in the book. They've been pulling it for millennia.
Oh, yeah. It's easy to just, you isolate your target, make them feel alone, make them feel like they're helpless, make them feel powerless, because if they're all together, there's tremendous power. Yeah. If you're all together, that the morale is there. And also, there's a lot of different things. We're going back to energy and frequencies. Yep. You can feel that. You go to a concert, you go to a sporting event, you go to a place where there's a lot of people that are vibing in the same way on the same thing. There is so much power. You could feel the energy in that place. It's a real thing. Imagine that all of those people on the same wavelength. That's tremendously powerful, and that's the aspect of it. And you can have that used for positive, for good, or you can have it used in a tremendously bad way. Yeah, absolutely. So it's all about how do people figure out how to manipulate it. You get that mass psychology taking place, and it 100%. Starts on the small level, and it starts by diminishing the individual to the point where they feel like, well, who am I if I'm not part of the larger group? Yeah. But the thing is that, just like little Hermie is saying in the start of the show, let's be independent together. Yeah. That's how we move forward, and that's how we succeed.
Absolutely. Getting going to the whole the vibing thing, going to a good comic book convention when you have a great con. I went to Ancient City Con recently with Shattermare Comics, and I got to sit in. I got to be a part of a panel talking about the creation of indie comics, and just that whole weekend. It was a small show, but everybody there seemed to be having a blast. Everybody was enjoying themselves. There were smiles all around, cosplays. Hearing people do the pitches for their books and stuff like that. It was an energy, and I felt so jazzed afterwards. It recharges you, and that helps you keep moving forward. And you're able to transfer that energy to others. You can help them feel jazzed up. You know, I mean, and when I do my new book Who Dis shows, when I have people come on and talk about, you know, the books that they've got coming out, when I have a creator on that is really truly passionate about the story that they're telling, they're excited to get this story in people's hands. It gives me a buzz. You know, I feel jazzed to make more stuff when, you know, after the show. So I love that. We need more of that. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
humans are social creatures, you know, like Eric is saying, they're coming together in similar beliefs.
Exactly.
And powerful. Absolutely.
And that's the thing, is that we need groups, we need community, we need a sense of that. That word has been bastardized over the past couple of years.
Talk about, you know, taking away the language and changing it.
Yeah. Community is vastly important for your physical, mental, and spiritual health. Having a sense of
Absolutely.
belonging, but not losing yourself to it. That's the difference. You know, having people that you can be a part of something with in a positive way is very important. I think they did something recently where they were, a bunch of people had come together to realize that it was like some kind of consensus that was across the board, where that is actually, it's more important than certain other things in terms of survival. Like sense of community, sense of belonging, having people that you care about and that care about you. Is unbelievably important, you know, and the thing is that, again, what's great, even though we're not all physically together, this is the idea in which, you know, we have various energies playing out, and various people that are here watching, and thank you guys for being here too. But there's that sense of
Appreciate you all.
exactly of appreciating people,
Yes.
and communication, and being here for something, and that is vital. That's vital to everything. To have us all exist isolated and on our own, and without anyone that we can confide in or love or care about, or that cares about us, man, that is detrimental.
Absolutely. And I just want to touch on what Feline's saying there, but so are cults. Know the difference? Absolutely.
Exactly.
Again, it goes back to being discerning.
Don't lose
you know?
yourself into that.
That's the dark side, as it were, of that whole community thing, because, you know, they pitch you this, oh, come in, be a part of this, but then you notice with cults, they will then take those people and they will isolate that entire group. So the isolation is still there. You just happen to have the same people that they're trying to program. You know, so yes, know the difference.
Absolutely. And the thing is, so going back a bit to the comic book structure of things.
Yeah.
So as far as the creation process goes, what are you seeing nowadays? That's obviously, you know, we talked about a bunch of things that have gone wrong compared to what's occurred in the past. What are you seeing right now where things can go right? Are you seeing positives take place in certain aspects?
Oh, absolutely. I see it from indie creators, you know, and it's because, I mean, actually, a lot of them grew up reading comics. You know, there's a few that have gotten into comics recently, but they've gone back to the old stuff. They've looked to see what worked before. You know, learning from the history that has come before us is crucial. Understanding things outside of comics as well. Reading, being widely read. I find that the more widely read creators are, the more likely they are to create quality content. If you're myopic in what you read and what you understand, your stories are going to come across as myopic. You know, if you don't experience different genres, different, you know, themes, you know, and, you know, read some nonfiction every now and then. You gotta pull from the real world. You gotta pull from real stories. You know,
even experiencing
it all comes
life.
Together. Yes.
You know, getting to know various people.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yes, that's one of the key things. You know, they say write what you know, but a lot of these new writers don't know anything outside themselves. And going to the coffee shop and going out to eat and having the same reoccurring conversations with the same people over and over again. So that's why we end up with that in our comics all the time.
Yeah, that's
just
a deadly adage. There's a couple of them out there that I'm like, I take a little umbrage to that, and that's one of them. Is the write what you know. Yeah, because it's like you go into it and you're like, well, we all don't know a whole hell of a lot.
Right? Well,
Any of us that are honest about it.
Well, I mean, see, and that's the thing. You gotta be willing to say, hey, I don't know everything, and again, being willing to learn, having that open mind to learn new things, to go out and experience new things, talk to people, learn from them. Like I said earlier, we have this amazing thing called the internet. Like, learn about different cultures, learn about different people and where they came from. Study. Again, we've got this wealth of human knowledge. Use it. Don't waste your time arguing with people online. Go learn something.
Yeah, grab some books. Get some books about philosophy, about history,
Yes.
biographies. Get even watching documentaries and various other things. Even if some of it is still painted with a certain narrative, or they want to elicit a certain, this is the viewpoint you should have on
Right.
this, place in history, this person, whatever it is, you're still gonna be in a different place, better
Yes.
for it than previously. Especially if you take on the role of, okay, I'll look into that further. Is that really how that went down? Be curious still. We're seeing a lot of things as a secondary effect, or maybe it's the primary effect, but it's certainly happening. Where the result is to shut off curiosity. The result is to
Yes.
shut off questioning.
Yes. I mean, look at, again, going back to Ancient Apocalypse. I mean, look how hard in the paint they are trying to shut Graham down because he's curious, because he's asking questions. It's almost like they want to get rid of actual investigative journalism because too many things are being, brought to light. It's the funny thing about the truth. It always comes out. The light will always shine through.
Yeah,
you can't
time
stop
tells
it.
the tale.
Always comes out in the end. I'm just
Sheldon
saying.
says, but curiosity is so hard.
That's why you got to lean into it and love it, man. You got to love that. You got to have thirst for knowledge.
Thirst-
have
yeah.
a lust for life and a thirst for knowledge.
I beamed that to your brain right there. That's what I did. I literally was going to say that
Me
at
and
the
you
same
would-
exact time, man. Simpatico.
Yeah. Simpatico, exactly.
But that's
man. We're
that's
on
the
same
thing that's
page.
great. And also going back before I forget, I want to say
Yeah.
I gotta be on your show soon. We got to make that a
Oh,
thing.
dude! Once I get my King Cryptid stuff, I got to have you on for What's in the Box. And that's where I have the creator come on and talk about the inspiration for the creation of the
okay.
book, the journey they went on to make the book, and then I open it live and then go through and show. I started the show because, crowdfunding was a new thing, a few years ago. It was kind of just beginning, and people were kind of apprehensive about backing, people that they didn't know. And is this person going to fulfill? So it was kind of my way of saying, hey, check this out. This creator has fulfilled. You can see the quality of the book here. You can see the content and the print quality. It looks good. You can hear their story. You can get to know this creator. And now that they've got another campaign, you can jump in on this. You can do a catch-up tier or a second chance or whatever. So that was my way of helping, to, I guess, assuage people's fears of backing. But yeah, man.
Well,
you
you're
gotta
probably
come hang
not
out.
going to get that box till July or August.
Okay.
So
Okay, that's fine.
Let's do
Well, we'll do
something
that.
before. Let's do
Yeah.
something
Oh,
before
absolutely.
that.
I've got new book Who Dis. You can come and talk
Yeah,
about
let's do
the
that.
next
That'd
book
be
you
fun.
got coming out. Absolutely, man.
Let's see. Shrek says, you guys really need to listen to real archaeologists. They just want evidence from Hancock. I've listened to a lot of real archaeologists. And
Same.
also Graham Hancock. Okay, so he's not an archaeologist. He's a journalist.
Nope. He's a journalist.
But he's
Exactly.
been around for over 30 years providing evidence after evidence. And then if you want to talk about archaeologists as well, you talk about Robert Schoch and what they did with him and can still continue to do to Robert Schoch with various concepts that he's provided evidence for. There's a lot of different things that are going down within archaeology. Even the concept of the Smithsonian basically being a government institute and the massive amount of cover-ups that have occurred within that institute. It's jarring.
You mean like the giant bones that they found and destroyed and dumped at sea? Yeah. I don't know if you watch. Are you familiar with the channel The Y-Files? AJ literally called the Smithsonian and asked about that, and they gave him the runaround and then hung up on him.
Wow.
Yeah. Why is there a certain part of the Grand Canyon that you cannot go near? And if you get near it, a mysterious white plane will show up and start observing you.
Oh, yeah. Well, even the fact they don't want you flying over Antarctica. And even when they were finding out about various things within Antarctica, because mostly, all the expeditions the Nazis took.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Just
there's a reason why they were interested.
Yeah. So then you said Bird down there, and they find more stuff that he reports about.
And then they censored his interview.
And various things come about, and then there's all of a sudden like a global treaty about Antarctica of like, okay, hands off. We all just go down there for scientific purposes.
Yeah. When there's a what is the old saying? Methinks he doth protest too much.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is the presentation of evidence and the hypothesis being presented, carrying out with the scientific method about these various things. There's been so many things that have been blindly and actively dismissed in terms of it'll be right in front of their face of like, look at there's so many archaeologists that aren't even acknowledging a place like Göbekli Tepe, and there's places now that are older. Far older than even that. There's places they're looking into that are like 20 to 50,000 years older than even ancient Egypt. Yep. And they're like, we can't explain any of what's occurring here. And it must just be
structures.
Yeah, and then the what is there? There's several hundred sunken cities. There's so much buried in the water throughout the earth.
It is amazing how much of our history is beneath the waves.
And and the thing is, there's a difference here. It's the same thing we're seeing within the corporate mainstream in comics, and then the independents, right? And there's the same thing that's occurring. There's the corporate mainstream within archaeology and academia, and then there are the independents, and there's a lot of independent. There's even urban archaeologists, because everyone just thinks that these old structures and things in history just occurred in these vast deserted areas where no civilization really was built on afterwards. You just go out there, you start digging, and you'll find yourself a town from 10,000 years ago. Largely
Nothing happens in a vacuum.
Largely ignoring the fact that underneath our own feet there's a tremendous amount of those things.
Yeah.
So even I've seen a lot of urban archaeologists getting dismissed when they come across various things that they find it and they dig and they excavate and they do whatever. And it turns into, well, if this is rewriting a certain thing within what is already applied as this is what we know and this is how it's been, they'll get dismissed, they'll get ruined.
Too many questions, it creates too many questions. And you would think that the questions that are being, brought up, you would think that as archaeologists, they're on a hunt for knowledge, right? They're out there to discover things, to uncover what happened in the past. You would think that they would want to answer these questions instead of dismissing them. But it doesn't fit with the quote unquote narrative that has been brought forth. So, it's easier to just push that away. And, people like to get paid. They'd like to make sure that they get funding for next year. So if they're told that they can't do this thing and they can't research this thing, we don't want to stifle your creativity, but you can only, go from this approved list. Yeah.
All tremendous amounts of money being pushed by certain individuals and certain governments and certain people and corporations that want a certain result skewed a certain way.
Yep.
And if you don't want to get that result, you don't get that money.
Exactly. You come to the approved conclusion that we tell you to, otherwise your funding is gone for the next year or longer, or your career is gone. We'll drag you through the mud. We'll ruin you.
Exactly.
And like you said, the same thing happens in the mainstream comic book industry. How dare you try to tell an even-keeled story that
once
actually
you're a
makes
threat
the reader
to the
think.
narrative, that's it. Because you could be doing exactly what you're doing. Let's say it's whatever it is, and we'll see it happen all the time. We'll stick to comics with this topic.
Yeah.
So I'll even use myself on this. So Altern has been around for 17 years. The first 10 years or so. The first 10 years, we predominantly, I guess you could say we put out graphic novels. And I'm just going to say when we had distribution, 2008 to, we'll say 2017. 2017, we come out with the newsprint with $1.50 cover price. I can't tell you how many people in the industry were giving me the whole, like, that's not going to be good. You're going to kill the industry. creators, retailers, various people within the industry that were not pleased with it. And not all of them were that way, but it was jarring to hear such a pushback on it. Then when we got into then when we got into newsstand distribution, and I said how the comic shops would get the newsstand would get the books first, and newsstand would get it 2 months later. So basically, when an issue came out that was a number 1 on newsstand, number 2 was already out at the comic shop, with the ad on the newsstand issued on the back cover talking about going to your local comic shop with the comic shop locator there.
Yeah.
So it was meant to funnel business back to the comic shop.
Yeah, you're trying to help the comic shops.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many comic shops blacklisted us and boycotted us over that. And I was like...
and this is the myopic view that I'm talking about. You know, they can't see outside of what they know. They're not thinking about the big picture.
So once, and I noticed this specifically, at the end of 2017, when I had posted the good news that it was Alterna's best year ever off the back of these $1.50 books being supported by our readers.
Yeah, man.
The attacks started and didn't stop until we were out of the mainstream distribution system.
Wow. That's just... I mean, I would like to say that it's surprising, but it's not surprising, and it's actually kind of pathetic. That just means that you were a threat. You know, you were showing them up.
Yeah,
you were doing
we exist,
what they should
and,
be
you know,
doing.
we're like, okay, we had at that point in time, we had a New York Times bestseller in 2012. We had put a film out in 2016. You know, I had, and it was funny to see upwards of 1,000 people sending DMs, tweets, emails, etc. over the span of weeks. That I was like, I recognize you. Oh, I rejected your submissions over the past 10 years. So many people with an axe to grind came out of the woodwork, right? Or if I had dropped their book or whatever it might have been.
Right.
And then various people who were at Alterna that were currently being published decided to turn as well because they thought, I know flat out, 3 of them thought that they were going to get a big deal at various publishers. And I was like, they're not going to do anything for you. They don't care about you. I was like, I've known you for 10 years. I've known you for 10 years. These guys don't care about you. Nothing ever happened for those 3 people. Nothing. They could care less. No other publisher even picked them up. One of them even came back and said, great, you ruined my deal because I'm associated with Alterna. I've had a book out with you. They don't even want to have anything to do with me. I'm like, I told you they wouldn't want to have anything to do with you. The whole point of it was to weaken our position.
Maybe if you would have thought about it a little bit more and you know, taken the... Wow, that is truly sad. You know, I mean, it's sad that they you know, lost out on actually having a spine, 1, and 2, sticking to their guns and just doing their book their way. Like, why would you want to sell yourself short to go work for corporate overlords when you can be free?
Yeah.
When you are free to create what you want.
I guess I can see it, right? Because if a creator-owned publisher, we're 100% creator-owned. The creators own their IP. They can get a movie deal going. I don't see a cent, right? And people go, well, how would you make money then on the book? It's called we print more books. We're making a movie. We'll print more books.
Hey,
so
maybe
you know,
have the books in the movie theater when the movies are coming out.
Yeah, if that book explodes and it, exactly. You know, so if like Walking Dead was with us type of a thing, you know, and I know they went the creator-owned route too with Image.
Sure.
But it's that kind of thing where they would have benefited as well. It would have been 100% creator-owned. So, you know, it's the same situation for every creator who's ever been at Alterna. So, 100% creator-owned publisher selling the most affordable books in the industry, and then didn't tank after the first year of doing that, but actually had their best year ever. I mean,
I bet that burned a lot of people's backsides.
If that got around, that's a possibility to happen, of course they had to ruin us. Of course they had to go in there and kick up dirt that didn't exist. And then on top of it, we're respectful to our customers. We thank them because that was like the first big wave. Because we were getting a lot of little waves, but the first big wave was thanking the wrong people.
How dare you respect your customers and thank them for purchasing the product that you've worked hard to put out? Oh my
absurd
God, you horrible human being.
And these are the very same people who would also post our pictures of our comics, post those pictures with Marvel DC books.
Yeah.
Did they go after Marvel and DC? No, they went after Alterna. You You know, so it's the same situation that occurs within a lot of different aspects of it. And we got out of the distribution system, and I consider myself to be outside of the comic industry at this point. You know, a part of, but not within. And
Yeah,
couldn't
totally.
be happier for it since 2020.
You flourished. You flourished because of it, man.
Yeah, we could do things now that we couldn't do then. And if anything, they put us in such a bad position between 2017 to 2020 on such a decline, on such a position where we were doing great that I was like, if we stay within this system, which is they're doing a squeeze play on us to kill us, if we stay in it, that's it. 2020 is our last year. And I was like, you know, so we've set up to sell direct and everything else. We're doing better there. Let's just get out of the system. And then all of a sudden it sucked the oxygen right out of the room. As soon as we got out of the system, within months, that was it. And I haven't heard pretty much a peep since that point. I think only like one small incident has occurred.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if I can consider it that compared to what I had gone through previously. But being outside of that system, they got what they wanted, and that was it.
And that's all they wanted. I mean, but you know, it's really a blessing in disguise for you because.
But yeah,
you
and
know,
if I didn't think there was a positive out of it for us, I would have stuck in it and been like, well, nuts to you. You know, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. But I saw, and I already knew that the system was really broken. But I saw after that first year, I was like, this system is irreparably broken at every facet. Why would I want to be a part of that? That's stupid.
it's
You know,
it's a losing
Get out of
sum
it if
game.
you can. Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed afterwards, like you were the first one to kind of jump out of that initial that mainstream distribution model, and then you know after a while DC did the same thing.
Yeah. 2 months
And then
later, I was like,
Marvel, you know, kind of like, oh, you know, DC's coming out on a Tuesday. We're proudly sold on a Wednesday. You know, that company had the audacity to release an entire line of variant covers that were just a solid color with the trade dress on the top that said proudly sold on a Wednesday. I mean, that is the most petty thing I have ever seen a company do, and I lost so much respect for Marvel after that, and there wasn't much left to begin with at that point. But yeah, and then what does Marvel do a few months down the road? Whoa, they're suddenly out of it as well, and now Image is gone too. Shocking. You know, it's almost like you saw ahead, you saw the curve, and you got out before, and you benefited from it. You trusted your intuition, man, and you know, hats off to you, man.
Yeah, every publisher should do the same thing.
I'm happy to see that you flourished, man. And yes, Shadowmare, it is embarrassing.
Yeah,
You know?
and the thing is that we're, and it's getting better because I figured out the new system that we have to really be acclimated to make what we're doing work.
Yeah.
You know, but like anything else, there was that year or two, especially the pandemic. Holy crap, did that really throw it for a spin in terms of supply chains and how that played out with everything. But now it's turning into an upward trend again for us, which is amazing. And we owe it all to the readers that have supported and to the creators that are here at Alterna currently and are working their butts off and making great stuff. But there was a time where it really was like, even last year, there was a time where I thought maybe we can't do this anymore this way, you know? And I had to really think, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way to make it work. I just got to figure it out. And I got to be honest with the readers about it and the creators at Alterna about it. And ever since, you know, being able to do that and move forward in an open and honest way on that level, it's been great. And it's been turning a lot of things around, and we're making up for the hole that was dug for us back in 2019, early 2020. And it started as soon as and it's you got to do that, and it's like you got to stick 100%. With it, and you got to have faith with it. And I'm approaching it with an attitude of gratitude, which is so important.
Yes, man. Yes. Well, we were talking about energy and frequency and vibration. There is a vibration. There's an energy that puts out when you are truly grateful. When you can feel it in your heart that you are grateful for something, and you just you say thank you. You put that out there. That is an energy. There's a resonance that goes out, and that will come back to you. You know,
absolutely.
You know, being grateful for what you have, you'll get more of it. You know, I fully believe that.
Oh,
and, Yeah, man.
Yeah, if you're in this
you've been
constant
hustling.
state of like take, you know what I mean? Like life's gonna give you what you deposit, so you can't keep withdrawing, and then it doesn't work that way. And you're not gonna get an overdraft warning with life. Life is just gonna dump some bad crap on you.
Yep.
It's not gonna give you like, okay, well, if you just kind of be a little bit more giving today, you'll get
And
back
it's
to
not always
even.
easy. You know,
It's
some
not.
days you wake up and you're
tough.
you're in an absolutely terrible mood. But I've found, at least personally for me, if I wake up in a terrible mood, and I stop, I take a deep breath, and I look around at I look at all this stuff behind me. I love my collection. I just something as simple as that. Thankful for the books that I have to read. Thankful for the stories that I have to enrich my mind. Thankful for the, what I've learned. I'm thankful for a mind that is hungry for knowledge.
Yeah.
That simple thing propels you forward, and it starts
Absolutely.
building. It snowballs, and then eventually I'm out of my bad mood. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
it
I feel
energizes you.
so much better. Yeah, exactly. Energized.
It's-
And it makes me ready to go hustle. And that's what we've got to do these days. It reminds me of what indie creators had to do back in the 80s, only they didn't have the internet back then, and we do. Like, we are lucky to have the ability to connect directly with our audience like we do now.
Yeah,
and
almost
the old
instantly.
methods still work.
Yep.
We can use the old methods and the new to create this new paradigm.
Exactly. And actually, I'm going to hold on to that thought. I want to thank Spicer McLeroy. Spicer, thank you so much, brother. Holy
Hail.
smokes. Spicer just gifted 20 people in the chat with a membership.
Yeah.
So thank you, Spicer. Spicer's been amazing with that over the past 2 or 3 weeks. And
That's amazing.
Thank you, brother, and everybody in the chat that's now a member. Enjoy the emojis. Have fun.
Yeah. Use them.
So that brings me to something that I was thinking about before, but there was no good time to bring it up. So you're talking about the merging of the two.
Yes.
And that's what I think is missing and is purposefully missing from today largely is the idea of taking the old and the new and understanding and merging them. So you look at some things. What I mean by that is looking at like the scientific and looking at the spiritual. You don't have to just go down the spiritual and ignore the scientific, and you don't just have to go down the scientific and ignore the spiritual. You're going to achieve what you want by understanding and acknowledging both. And when we see that and we can actually go, they work hand in hand, and if anything, a lot of the time we're finding that things that we think are metaphysical 100 years ago are now scientific and can be explained. We're going to see the same thing for things that we still think are metaphysical and unexplainable today. We're going to see that down the line where we look at that, and there's going to be generations that just take that knowledge for granted the way we take a lot of knowledge for granted right now. That 200-300 years ago, you run around saying that, and you're going to find yourself burning.
These. Nikola Tesla predicted these, 100 some odd years ago. And what was it Arthur C. Clarke said? Any technology sufficiently advanced enough is indistinguishable from magic.
Yes. Yeah.
We are literally living in that right now. So it like you said, it goes hand in hand. It's all part of the greater whole. There's the yin and yang. There's the balance as well. But it's all part of a whole. That we've got to find that balance. And
Absolutely.
integrate it. Integrating all of that together. I mean, that I think is the way forward. Integrating the old with the new.
Can't just shut ourselves off from because the spiritual is going to help you to acknowledge the limitless, that the impossible could be possible. And if we shut that aspect of us off, and all we know today is what we know, we're never going to actually know anything at all.
Well, be curious.
So.
Be curious, not judgmental, as Walt Whitman said.
Let's see, Jimmy. Jimmy says, "Damn, I wanted a membership." Jimmy,
Gotta
they're
be quick, Jimmy.
They're 99 cents, Jimmy.
Yep.
So if you do want one, go for it. Go for it. But I appreciate it. Man, this has been great. Let's just make it a 2-hour conversation. We got 15 minutes
good
to
with
that
that.
point. Is that good with you? Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Okay. Now I want to get to what you've been personally doing. You've been doing a lot of stuff lately.
Yeah.
And we sort of touched upon it in the beginning, where you're a man. You're like a Renaissance man.
I got a lot of interests. Yeah.
Yeah, and now you've got a new endeavor. You're starting off on a comic. What's up with that? What are you doing?
I am. I'm actually, 3 years ago, I was just getting back into drawing. I started Topicless with Jason. I was doing Fragtober with Fragaboom over on his Couch Doodles channel, and 3 years later now, I'm actually penciling a comic book. I am working on a 76-page graphic novel coming out through Shattermare Comics called Mercenary Guild. We have an email sign-up list at themercenaryguild.com. As a matter of fact, I think I have that link here somewhere. But yeah, I'm penciling and inking that book, and Morb in the chat is actually writing it. And yeah, we're gonna be kicking that off, in next year.
Nice.
So
man.
I'm excited. This is something that I've always wanted to do. I have always wanted to make comics, tell stories, and I'm finally getting to do it. And 3 years ago I didn't think I would, but I kept it in my mind that that's what I wanted to do. That's what I was aiming for. That was my focus. And I've always had a desire to talk to different creatives, so that's where my YouTube channel comes in. I talk to different creatives, and I hear that and get feedback.
You're a builder, brother. You're a builder. You're a creator, man.
I want to be, and I want to build other people up. I don't just want to build me. I want to build other people up. My name, Luke, literally means light. So if I can be a light to other people, I'm gonna do it. If I can help other people find their path, I'm gonna do it. Because that enriches me as well. I fully believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. So if we're all doing good, then we're all moving forward. I believe that I am finally on my path, that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, telling stories, being creative, and I have never felt so good. Also, side note, started out this year at 250 pounds. I am now officially down to 206 pounds.
Oh, congrats, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that. But
how tall are you?
6'2".
Whoa.
Yeah.
Look at you, brother.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And it goes back to that whole thing. It's all part of the same thing. A body in motion stays in motion. So it just takes a little push to get forward, to start moving. And as long as you keep putting one foot in front of the other, keep moving towards that goal, you'll get there. So, yeah. And Feline says, wait, you're the Dark Luke. Yes, there's a joke between me and Luke Stone, because he was a pastor, so he's the light Luke, and
I am the dark Luke.
But, sometimes it takes a little darkness to see the light. You have that contrast. The darkness closes in, and you see that light at the end of the tunnel.
You get the yin and the yang.
Absolutely.
You need both. You need both. It's not necessarily evil or dark in a morality sense,
Right.
You need
exactly.
both. You need those periods of expansion and contraction.
The
Silvar,
contrast.
yeah. Thank you for becoming a member, and Woodrow, thank you as well. Appreciate that.
Hail.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad you're enjoying the show. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Let's see. We got a couple other people here in the chat. I want to touch upon that. Let's see. Buddha Bear says, hey, just curious, what's the ETA on Timey Tim? Because I wasn't thinking and grabbed the coupons I need for the card with the replicas, so just hope in time. I'm going to be shipping those out probably over the weekend. So on Monday, I'll be shipping that out to you. So thank you, Buddha Bear.
That's awesome.
But yeah, man, I'm proud of you, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. I'm proud of you too, Pete.
It's great to hear people that are setting out on their path and feeling like, this is my purpose, and I'm gonna go for it. And like you said, everything kind of starts falling into place in terms of bringing about positive change for yourself.
Yep.
So it's great. You're putting the work in. You're building up not just yourself but others. And in the process, also building up yourself. So it turns into this positive feedback loop.
Absolutely. I would much rather have a positive feedback loop than a negative one. And I know I've said a lot of quotes and a lot of age-old adages, but there's a reason why these age-old adages are true. you know, because you reap what you sow. If you sow positivity, and you're going to reap it back. You know, you put that energy out into the world, and it's going to resonate back. Thank you all. I really appreciate it. You know, I'm having fun too. I think that's another huge thing. Like, have fun with what you're doing. If you're really passionate about something, have fun doing it. You know, be into it. Be all about it. Don't let somebody dissuade you from being about it. Just jump in with both feet. You know, put that passion in there. Put that all into it.
Yeah.
And you'll get it
No
back.
day like today. And I know that, like Luke said, we're using a lot of cliched adages in a way, but they're true. They're true because the thing is that, let's say you wanted to do something, and every one of us knows in some direction, this is what I feel passionate about. I want to do this with my life. I want to at least like start to try to do it, right? Yep. And if you keep putting off and you put it off and you put it off, 10 years goes by, 15 years goes by, 20 years goes by.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you're thinking like, man, if I had started, and you will eventually start. That's the thing. You will eventually start because it's like an earworm that's going to get to you one day, and your heart is going to yearn for what you wanted to do years ago.
Yes.
And then you're going to be like, man, I wish I started when I wanted to. And you'd be that many more years ahead of where you are today. So wherever it is in terms of whatever you want to do in your positive creativity, you want to get it out there, you want to try to achieve something, you want to make something, you want to leave your mark, your legacy, whatever it is, you know, in terms of something positive. Start it in any possible way that you can. And it doesn't mean you got to go out there and the diving into it is, and I talk about this a lot, you don't have to rush into the terms of like making a final product and selling it and going to a publisher and this and that. Don't put that kind of pressure on yourself when you're in a stage of learning and building. You know, look at it like that of like, you know, hey, if you want to start to draw, just start drawing. Just look around you, start drawing something. You know, start drawing the things that interest you. If you want to write, start writing some stories, start writing your ideas down, start getting your thoughts out. You know, before you know it, you do this day in and day out, a little bit of time for yourself, invest in yourself in that capacity, and look back and maybe a year later, you're like, wow, I've really gotten to a place that I never thought I could have been.
100%, man.
Yeah, so often. I mean, I've talked to even family members that just they're racked with it of going, man, I can't do that. I can't start now. I can't do this. I can't do that.
The worst words you could ever say to yourself. I can't. Yes, you can.
Yeah. And in that respect, you know, my heart breaks for them, but it's like that's their path, and they got to realize that, you know, we all choose a different thing. And some of us do make these sacrifices where you're like, well, I did this instead of the other thing because this was, you know, where life put me. Sure. You know, but try to find a way. Punches. Yeah, try to find a way to get back to keeping a little bit of you. You
gotta every day. You got to do something that makes you feel good. That means something to you, even if it's as small as, you know, I don't know, folding origami. You know, something that helps you zen out. You know, something just simple, something that brings you joy. Do that, and then try to build on that, because, you know, big fires, a blazing, roaring fire, it starts with one little spark.
Absolutely.
One little spark is all it takes to catch, and then you keep feeding that, and it builds and it grows. And, you know, you feed that with your positivity. You feed that with being thankful for the little spark that you have. You know, and that doubles, it quadruples, you know, and it just grows over time, and you just keep feeding that with positivity, and eventually you'll have a big roaring fire. You know, you gotta feed the mind, you gotta feed the soul, you gotta feed the heart, and you gotta feed your positivity to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And it helps having good people around you.
Yeah,
I've got
taking
some
care
amazing
of that.
people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. It does. It man, the supportive people in your life, holy smokes.
Yep. You know, I got my girl Feline in the chat.
Incredible.
I've got my buddy Jason, you know, Red Valkyrie, they've been supportive. You know, I've got this amazing support network that, you know, encourages me to keep pushing forward. You know, Jimmy Reyes is now part of Topicless. He's encouraging, you know, and just you have this people that also can help you see the forest from the trees, like we mentioned earlier. They can help give you perspective. That's part of having that support network.
Yeah,
They
don't
can
get so bogged down in the minutia,
Yep.
that you lose sight of the bigger picture. Your
Yeah.
larger goal, your larger purpose, whatever it may be, and but work with incremental steps towards that. Because some
Yes.
people, I see them that they have these huge goals, which is great. But I'm like, break those down. You got to break them down. So it's like, okay, you want to get your comic book done, all
Yep.
right? But you have no idea yet how to structure out even like that first page, let alone
Yeah.
that first panel, right?
Yep.
Well, you got to start breaking that down, because if you keep looking at the bigger picture too, and you keep looking at the bigger goal, the thing you want to achieve, but you don't break them down into these smaller achievable goals, you're almost going to always come up with an excuse
It's-
why
it's
you
too
can't do the
overwhelming.
bigger one. It's
Yep.
too overwhelming, And of course, we'd all like to do the big thing and accomplish it and get
grand
it done.
sweeping
and-
gestures.
Yeah, and it's just it's all these little things that you have to do over time, and then you'll get to where you gotta be. But be patient with yourself.
That's
Sheldon,
crucial.
absolutely, yeah. This is another fun show,
Thank
Pete.
you,
Luke
Sheldon.
is a great guest. Yeah, Luke's awesome. I think you've been
I-
on the
I
show like
appreciate that.
2 or 3 or 4 times, something like that. It's always a great
Yeah.
conversation with you. And
Yeah,
and
man,
when I
you
would
toss
have,
that
like,
link into the
open-
chat, and I happen
yeah,
to be
and you
there.
come in. Oh, it's
Dude,
great.
It's so much fun. I absolutely enjoy talking with you, man. It's the conversation just flows naturally. I'm sure you've talked to people like in real life, not on the internet like we are, but out in real life, where it's just having that conversation sometimes is like pulling teeth. And this is the exact opposite. The conversation just flows, and there's an ebb and flow of topics and knowledge shared, and just the energy going back and forth, because conversations are an exchange of energy.
Absolutely.
And, some people are closed off to that. But yeah, the baby steps. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, right? So put one foot in front of the other, and you'll eventually get there.
I love it. I love it because these might sound like empty platitudes, but I
mean, if you
assure
want to
you,
look at them that way, sure.
I assure you they're not. And I don't think there's anyone in the chat that's that cynical in this respect. But we do
I don't
find
think so.
cynicism is taking over big time in the world.
Yeah.
And that's being really encouraged to be. And that's the funny part. And I know we only got a couple more minutes, but that's the funny thing to me about again, going back to the control of language, is that we're even seeing these concepts like empathy, concepts like diversity, concepts like open-mindedness, all these different things being turned up on their head.
Weaponized.
And the words are there, but the actions are the opposite of the
Yes.
words.
Well,
And that's the thing that is
gaslighting.
yeah, that's the thing that's really worrisome. But in order for it's like anything else and everything else we've been talking about tonight, in order to actually move forward, in order to actually have the things you want to have, the things you want to achieve, the peace of mind, etc., it all starts with the individual. It all starts with you doing those various things, putting your nose to the grindstone, getting out there, putting in the work, putting in the time,
Yes.
focusing, acknowledging others, but focusing on yourself, and then giving back as much as you can, paying it forward in a positive way.
Absolutely.
I see a lot of miserable people sometimes that think, well, I didn't get the result that I expected, that I feel I deserved, that other people didn't show up for me.
Right.
And then I often wonder, well, how many times did you show up for them? How many times did you show up for yourself?
Yep.
Did you look for ways to grow? Did you look for ways to push yourself when you reach those plateaus?
Yep.
More often than not, the answer is no. So really try to push yourself, be creative in every possible way that you can be, and be understanding that the fact that, who is here for you right now, be grateful for it.
100%.
And don't be expecting that people should be there, because what's going to happen, the universe is going to hear that energy that you're giving out and throw it right back at you and be like, oh, you expect people to be there for you.
Yeah.
Well, now you'll have no one there for you,
Yeah.
and that eventually catches up. So
It does.
yeah, it's man, but yeah, so just go out there, put in the time, put in the investment, put in the work for yourself, and remember to pay it forward. Luke, thank you so much, brother. This has been a great conversation tonight.
Fantastic conversation, man. I always love talking with you, Pete. Always a good time, man.
And we could do this another
you're one of the
2
goods,
hours,
man.
but
You're one of the greats. I really do feel that you're one of the pillars of this community, man. And I appreciate everything that you've done for all of the various independent creators, getting the word out there about, different books, having guests on to have these intriguing conversations, because we need more of this good content on the internet. There's entirely too much of the negative. We need stuff like this that's positive, that brings people together, that inspires them and lifts them up. So I appreciate everything that you're doing right now, man.
Absolutely. And
thank you, Arthur.
Thank you, man. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to have this conversation. And everybody here, too. Thank you guys for being here for this. Thank you guys for your input tonight, for your feedback, for your conversation, your comments, your questions, all of it.
You're amazing, chat.
Thank you guys. You guys are the best. But other than that, I'll be back tomorrow night at 9 o'clock Eastern. I got to confirm with my guest. I'm waiting on confirmation only because I tried to have this individual on 2 other times and we had to reschedule.
Oh, no.
So I'm trying to make sure that we can still have them on. And it's of no fault of anybody. It's just life happens. Emergencies arise.
Sure.
So I'm hoping the 3rd time's a charm. But either way, I'll be back here tomorrow night at 9 o'clock with a guest or not. So see you guys then, 9 o'clock Eastern. Until then, thank you, Luke, so very much. Everybody, go check out deathmetalhero.com.
Yes.
And go check out alternaticomics.com, of course, for all the wonderful Alterna comics that we put out. And thank you guys in the chat for showing up and being here, and we really appreciate it. Everybody, until then, have a great night and an even better tomorrow. Take it easy, everybody. See ya.
See you later.